This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Tonight, from the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York, the Kentucky Colonels meet the New York Nets.
Julius Erving, Larry Keenan, Billy Paultz, Brian Taylor, John Williamson on the court to start this first playoff game. And it's Jim Bradley, Artis Gilmore, Chuck Williams, and Louis Dampton. Jumper by Dr. J. 6 points so far in this first quarter for the doctor.
That's what makes him so terrific, Dave. If you back off, he shoots the ball, and if you play him tight, he drives on you. And he's a good free throw shooter also.
We're back and Everything Old is New Again with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen, and that was a little clip from the ABA in 1974, the Nets against the Kentucky Colonels featuring Dr. J. We're here with and having a great time with Earl The Pearl Monroe, Hall of Famer, Knick champion from the year before, 73. Of course, that was the NBA champion, a little bit different. I just wanted to kind of dig into this a little bit because we were from Long Island originally. I was, and I had a chance to watch that ABA Nets team, and it was basically a contemporary team and championship team right after the year after the Knicks won that championship. How would you compare? Let's put it this way. Firstly, did you ever have a chance? I mean, you were busy. Did you ever have a chance to watch the ABA game while you were playing?
I did. I was very impressed by the talent that the ABA guys possessed. We listened to just Dr. J, Super John. I mean, come on. Right. They had a lot of great guys. George Gervin, Connie Hawkins. Oh man, it just goes on and on. Over there, Louis Dampier, you got
Dan Issel,
right. You got Artis Gilmore, Moses Malone.
Right.
I mean, come on, they had a lot of talent, and it was good that that it finally got meshed together because all the best talent was supposed to be in the NBA.
Now, was the game quality-wise? Because of course they had this talent, but it had less teams, but they still had the talent. Do you think the games? Well, maybe a better way to say is this: how would the 73 Knicks have done against the 74 Nets?
Oh, come on.
I mean, the Nets had Brian Taylor, John Williamson, Larry Keenan, Dr. J, Julius Erving, and Billy Paultz. And, of course, just for the fans here, the listeners, the Knicks had Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, Dave DeBusschere, Bill Bradley, and Willis Reed. I think we know the answer, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Well, I think we would have, did pretty well against those guys. Again, it would have been competitive. I mean, you had some super talent over there, right, with Doc and Super John and so forth and so on. But I just think that, experience-wise and how we played the game might have won out on that scenario. There's another story that crops up because, I was supposed to be traded for George McGinnis of the Indiana Pacers, and that.
When was that, Earl? What point in your career?
That was like what's that? 75?
Okay.
Or something just before, or 76, just before Doc came in and he played out, and it was an interesting thing because my agent had made a deal, whereas I would have gotten. This was when George McGinnis was with Philadelphia,
right?
And we had made a deal, whereas I would have gotten a piece of the gate, and they nixed the deal at the commissioner nixed the deal at the very last minute. So that would have set a different type of precedent, at least for players.
That's true. Wow. So did he nix the deal because of the deal that you were getting, part of the gate? Was that part of the decision? Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, but it would have been an interesting, scenario.
That would have been a
hey,
game changer.
You can't change history.
Right, exactly. Speaking of history, we're talking to Earl the Pearl Monroe. Earl the Pearl is the name of the book, my story. And if you look from every corner of this book, from anyone who really talks to you and knows you and see what you've survived in life and the different lessons you learned along the way, and it comes forth that you're mostly optimistic and smiling and enjoying the ride as you go. And you know what? Bill Bradley says it better than I can. I'm just going to read a quick quote here and ask you to respond. Earl seems to know that kindness is more important than on the court heroics. He accepts life's ups and downs, neither overwhelm him. Balance on the court and balance in life. This seems to be his motto. In Earl the Pearl, you will read his story in his own voice. The quiet man has finally spoken. It is a story worth reading, and his life has been worth living. He's led a life that's been worth leading. So that comes from a teammate, but it's just one person's quote, but I think he says it perfectly, the essence of your life and what's happening in this book. My question is, do you have any advice for others to live a life with a smile and optimism and to overcome obstacles as you have?
Well, my philosophy all through life has been, when something happens that's happened, you can't change it, it's gone. Now, my next thought is, where do we go from here? And to try and plan on what the next mode of action is. It's interesting that Bill had said it's in my voice, because when I got Quincy Troop to do the book, I had read Miles Davis' autobiography, which Quincy had done, and it was like Miles was talking to me. I remember Miles used to call me all the time and ask me, and he would say something, but I couldn't understand what he's saying. He would say, "Hey, Pearl, this is it." Now he used to say, okay. And then I read the book, and I realized that he was offering me his orthopedic bed. When I had surgery in 1973, and he had hip replacement in the year before, so he had this orthopedic bed he was offering to me. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a book that was going to be in my voice and saying as I would say it. And I did an awful lot of editing in this book to make it so that it was in my voice. And I think that, if anybody was to take anything away from this, it was that I lived the life that I lived, because it was the life that I lived. Now, it might sound crazy, but it's the truth.
But it's straightforward. In other words, you took life as it is, as the obstacles and different challenges in life presented themselves before you, overcame or not, and whatever it was, you didn't let it bother you. You looked to the next day or the next thing, or what's the next thing to do to solve that problem, I guess is what we're saying.
Right, it's behind you. You can't do anything about it. But, interestingly enough, as I say that, if I knew ESP was going to be showing all this stuff as it is now, I might have changed up and did something different.
Got that right.
Well, thank goodness it wasn't around in your time, because we certainly enjoyed watching you when you were playing.
All right, we're going to take a break here for a moment with Earl the Pearl Monroe. The book is called Earl the Pearl. It's a great read. You've got to get involved in this. David Cohen, how do you order your books? Amazon.com? What do you do?
Me?
Yes.
I don't read books. I find it to be the simplest way to read is to not read. Well, no, I had my Kindle. I read on the Kindle, which is through Amazon. But there's also nothing like the feel of actually holding a physical book.
That's what I love.
So I'll go to Barnes & Noble and I'll pick it up there.
Beautiful. And that's the way to go, because this Earl the Pearl book is terrific. Mr. Monroe is taking a break for the next two sections. We'll have him on the fourth section of our show to finish. I want to go into next section and maybe the section after, the ambiance of Madison Square Garden or an arena as a kid, what it's like to be there for the first time and see Earl the Pearl Monroe play for the Knicks, the team that was or was not a dynasty. They won in 69 and 73. Would you call them a dynasty?
I don't think so. I mean, they were good during the intervening years, but I think the teams were a little different. But I always wondered why that 73 team wasn't a dynasty unto itself, because they were so good. And maybe it's because didn't Willis Reed leave after that year? And
yeah, Reed left after that year. DeBusschere became the commissioner of the ABA the following year in 74. So I think that was two huge losses there.
Was Bradley in the Senate also? So he was distracted because he was a senator. And
came a little later, but yes, he had aspirations.
You know, when you're on the road against the Celtics and you've got a court session down in D.C., a vote, it's really hard to juggle them.
But the question is, what about before then, between 69 and 73? They would have won one more. Would they have been a thing?
I think so.
A dynasty?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Just a shame, because they were such a great team. We'll be back and everything old is new. I doubt it. Thank God for Earl the Pearl Monroe. He'll live in infamy for the rest of the country. Famous. That's because they don't like him because he won. But now we like him. Oh, whatever.
Makes total sense.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Hi there, this is Earl Monroe. You're listening to Everything Old is New Again.
Yes, we're back here with Earl Monroe, and I'm here with David Cohen as well. And you're listening to Everything Old is New Again. We're trying to give us a little bit of an ambiance here in this section of the show as to what it was like to see Earl the Pearl Monroe in the 1970s live and in person at Madison Square Garden. I actually was fortunate enough to do that in the early 70s, and I just want to let everyone know we had Earl is not in the studio right now. He'll be back in the next section of Everything Old is New Again, so we'll be revisiting Earl in a few moments. But let's hold off on that because I just want to lay the groundwork. I remember as a kid, maybe I was 10. David Cohen, when's the earliest time you ever went to any sporting event?
Oh, wow. It was probably Yankee Stadium when I was about that age. Yeah, I would say about 10.
It's I think, sort of unforgettable when you're a kid that age going into these huge mega arenas, right?
Because you only saw the game on TV on this tiny screen, and suddenly you were there, and it was crazy.
Yeah,
right?
I'll talk about. We could do Yankee Stadium. That's a whole nother.
But even Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, let's go to Madison Square because it's a little different now, and I think all NBA stadiums have their own ambiance, and I haven't been to all, so I don't know. But this one, especially back in the day, this is like 1971. We walk in, and you come in from the train, you go up from the train station directly. You don't even go outside. You go directly into the Madison Square Garden area. There's people everywhere. You're in the middle of New York City. There's going to be, 15, 16,000 people in the arena to watch the Knicks, and this is with, championship teams.
Right.
Yep.
They actually had a team to root for. Yeah.
Exactly. That had some real chance of being the world champions or even making the playoffs or even keeping your attention talking about this year, So you go through the hallway and then you have this tunnel that you walk through to get out into where all the seats are in the arena. And we had seats down by the court, out on the court. So as you go down or going through this tunnel, you're hearing little by little, you're hearing squeaking sneakers, right? You're hearing, because it just started to loosen up, you're hearing the ball pounding, and it reminds you this is just like Little League when I was a kid, or when you are a kid. It's just like Little League. It's the same exact sounds.
Yeah, it's like in the school gymnasium.
Yeah, except there's all these people milling about, and then you get out, and you out of the tunnel, you open up into this arena, which is the biggest building that you've ever been in. Right? I mean, it's just the ceiling. You look at the ceiling, and it just goes on forever.
The famous Madison Square Garden ceiling.
Right. And then you've got the different uniform that have been retired hanging. And you look around, and now this is the 70s. Half the guys are smoking cigars. Guys are wearing hats. Unfortunately, I don't know, mostly it was at that time, there's a lot more men than women that I remember. So that set kind of a tone. They sold the beer, hot dogs, pretzels, popcorn. That was it. There were no other selections. Oh,
No.
Of course, soda, and a soda.
Peanuts were big.
Right, okay, they had peanuts too.
That's about it.
Exactly. So you go in and you sit in your seat, and but there was this excitement before the game because you were going to see. It's not really the right word, but a show. Like these players had such skill that you were going to be in a treat. You were going to see something not like these players. I think today that the first 3 quarters of the game, a lot of them are kind of just walking through it back and forth, back and forth. Do you get that feeling or no these days?
No, not really, but I know what you mean. I think it was more about the fact that the Knicks were just a great team, that they had 5 guys going out onto that court who were in their own right all-stars. So
Right.
you were seeing a true all-star team every time you went to a Knicks game.
Walt Frazier, Dave DeBusschere, Willis Reed,
Earl Monroe.
I mean, just
Crazy.
Bill Bradley. And then they even had a player, Hawthorne Wingo. Everybody loved his name. He played like 1 minute a game, but everybody would scream out his name, Wingo, whatever. So you sit down, and it's just like you see the old time movies where there's that smoke over the arena. You see this,
right.
foggy kind of, and
a smoke cloud. Near
from
the
all
roof.
the cigarettes and cigars, which I'm not saying is good, but that was the ambiance. And your little kid looking around, and everyone seemed, and I could be misperception, that everyone was so into it, like it seemed like no one was going like a casual, corporate fan. This was
right.
The tickets were much less expensive. These were tickets that you could get. They didn't, have all the season tickets where it was sold out. You couldn't get into the games and all. So it was the guy off the street. Hey, let's go tonight. All right, we're going to go. And he went with his buddies, and hopefully women did too. But it didn't happen as much. But they were there, and the era was different, but you felt that anticipation. Then the game started. And by the way, you'd look over to the booth and you'd see even wherever you live, you have your local announcer. And they're sort of a celebrity too, at least back in the day. And when you look over, you see Marv Albert. There's Marv Albert right there. Look at him, there he is. And so you're seeing up close and personal someone that you usually see on television, or maybe on television. NBA wasn't that often on television in the 70s. It was the weekends, but they didn't to have every game on television.
No,
I remember.
Didn't. Right.
So anyway, and then you'd hear the game would take place and start to go, and you'd see players sweating on the floor, and they'd bring out the
mop.
Little kid in between, mopping up in between. They still do that?
They still
have
do
to do that.
Yeah.
But you'd see that as a kid. You go, what the heck is that? And then you'd see or hear, towards the end of the game, or actually with the Knicks, during the game, you hear this rumbling. Defense. Then it would get louder and louder. And before you know it, the whole place is cheering, defense. That was their cheer, And just to be in there and look around and you're now part of the adult group of watching this performance, this extraordinary event, especially if they were playing another team of players that you knew. And the league was a little smaller and the world's different. You knew a lot of the players on those teams too. Of course, if you're a fan, you're a kid, you follow all that. And to see the adversaries, the other team scoring. But there were no dunks, no three-pointers. So there was a lot of physical play, underneath the basket to get a rebound and to get a layup. And Earl The Pearl would come out with Frazier, and these two would bring the ball up. And it was almost like the Beatles in a way. Like they got the ball, they're bringing it up. The team, you knew everybody, everything was going on, and you were entranced. You wouldn't even want to go to the bathroom. Most people would not get up. There was none of this, let me go get something to eat and whatever. Everyone stayed in the seats, and then in the intermission, between quarters, everything was crowded. The whole crowd would go out through these tunnels, and there's lines everywhere to go to the bathroom and stuff. So it was just a different feel, if I'm painting the picture, to what I see now is a little more antiseptic, a little more, corporate. And listen, I'm not putting it down. You got to make money, but it was a real different world when Earl The Pearl Monroe would get that ball, and you would hear a little bit more of a rise of the crowd because you knew that he was going to create something
on the court. You didn't know what he was going to do. And it was just about the Dr. J time, but Dr. J wasn't as national a figure, and it wasn't on TV as national. So he was the one that would improvise more than anybody else to pass the ball around, to get a basket or what have you. So I'd never forget the smell and the feel and the ambiance of Madison Square Garden first time I ever went in there.
And just to give people a perspective, the Knicks back then, I guess the only team that has somewhat of a resemblance to them right now would be the Golden State Warriors.
Yes.
It was so if you took the Warriors and you put them in Madison Square Garden, I think maybe even today you'd probably recapture some of that excitement, because that's what it was like way back when.
It's like super teams, but also you would play super teams too.
Right.
You'd have the Lakers with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jerry West, and
the rivalries with the Celtics, and
yes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, the Celtics were over the top good, and so it was a different feel. I hope the kids today are enjoying basketball as much as I did then. I don't enjoy it as much now. I don't enjoy any sport as much now. You get older, you sort of back off a little bit from the day-to-day stats and watching and hearing every single game. But when you're invested listening to almost every game and reading the paper every day, the next day you run out to the mailbox to get that newspaper to see the box score and read the articles about what happened in the game and behind the scenes in the locker room. What would Earl the Pearl Monroe say to this reporter in the locker room about that dunk or whatever the heck he did? You know what I mean? So I thought it was pretty cool. The only thing I think you said that as analogous to you was what, 94, the Rangers?
It was similar environment when the Rangers were on their Stanley Cup run, and the change in the attitude of the fans, because New York has pretty harsh sports fans. When you're not playing well, they let you know about it, and they're not happy. Yeah, I don't know if we have time.
Got about a minute. Give it a little bit.
Yeah, so before the Rangers...
And we're going to pick it up in the next section, so we don't feel you have to. Maybe tease it. Let's do it this way.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a before and after fans' perspective on viewing a really bad team, and then suddenly the next year viewing, a Stanley Cup champion team.
Right, which is almost basically the same fans.
Same exact fans.
Same environment, same place.
Completely different attitude.
Right. All right, so we'll be back, continue talking about the Madison Square Garden, the fan experience of baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever it might be, especially, as a younger person then versus now. And then we're going to come back and speak with and complete our show with the great Earl the Pearl Monroe. Come on back. Everything Old is New Again right after this.
All right, so Doug, people have been saying, hey, I could find you guys on YouTube. You have your own YouTube channel. I can find you on Facebook. But what about other social media? Do you exist anywhere else in the social media universe?
Yes, we do. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter. At the same thing, you go at EONA Show. That's Everything Old is New Again. The initials, right? So it's EONA Show. And that's it, at EONA Show. You got Instagram, Twitter, and I'll tell you, we post pictures, behind-the-scenes stuff, trivia questions, contests, notes about the show, so you have a lot of fun. Subscribe to us, friend us on Facebook if you can, and subscribe to the YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
That's fun. I'm going to even start doing that.
It might be worth your while. You can actually know what we're going to do next week.
Good.
At EONA Show. That's at EONA Show.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Tonight, from the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York, the Kentucky Colonels meet the New York Nets.
Julius Erving, Larry Keenan, Billy Paultz, Brian Taylor, John Williamson on the court to start this first playoff game. Initial Jim Bradley, Artis Gilmore, Chuck Williams, and Louis Dampton. Jumper by Dr. J. 6 points so far in this first quarter for the doctor.
That's what makes him so terrific, Dave. If you back off, he shoots the ball, and if you play him tight, he drives on you. And he's a good free throw shooter also. There's a great...
There we are, the ABA right there. We're talking all things basketball with Earl the Pearl Monroe, who'll be back in the fourth section of our show. In the meantime, we're talking with young David Cohen, and we're in the third section of our show right now, if you're interested, keeping score. David, you were going to talk to us a little bit about your experience on a fan side, a little different, but still Madison Square Garden, but the Rangers, the long-suffering Rangers at the time in 1994. They were still long-suffering, but that was their little climax, pit of it all, right?
Yeah, they had been they had gone the longest of any NHL team without winning a Stanley Cup, and their cross-island or their cross-town rivals, the Islanders and the Devils, would relentlessly have a 1940 chant that would go up to remind the current players how long that drought had been, and Ranger fans live with that haunting chant, and there was nothing they could say in return. And so, just to give you an idea of the Garden fans in general, whether it was basketball or hockey or whoever was playing there at the time, how unrelenting they were. If you were bad, they let you know it, and if you were good, they just, wow. What a wave of, yeah. So, before 1994, I remember, maybe it was early in that season, there was just total despair at the Garden. Whenever you were at a Ranger game, you just knew they were going to lose, but you ended up showing up anyway because you had that missing gene in your system that just made you show up to Rangers games. So there was a defenseman on the Rangers, James Patrick, and during the game there was a lull, and the Rangers were on a power play, and James Patrick winds up with a slap shot and takes a shot and misses the net by a mile, right? And there's one lone voice who cries out, "Nice shot, Patrick, you piece of bleep. I hope you die."
Oh, my God.
And there was a silence, and everyone looked at this guy and looked at each other like, yeah, you know what? He's right. We get it. That's how we're all feeling right now. And it was just the sentiment. He summed it up with that one yell. And you could hear it across the Garden. I'm sure Patrick could hear it. That's how quiet it was there. And then flash forward to the next year when Mark Messier had joined the team from the Edmonton Oilers and the Wayne Gretzky, great era of that hockey team. And Messier brought some great leadership, and they had new players. And suddenly we had a great team in New York. And just the change from hearing that guy's voice to, the energy of the fans yelling out words of encouragement, which was a complete change of pace. And suddenly you were hopeful and like, wow, could this be a once-in-a-lifetime dream? And it ended up, yes, it was. But you'd hear encouraging words like Mike Richter was the goalie for the Rangers, and he was having a super year. And one guy would just start yelling out, "You're a wall, Mikey, you're a wall." And things like that you would never hear. It was always, "Nice shot, Patrick, you piece of bleep. I hope you." Right. It was that kind of thing, to just this like worship of this team that was sent from the heavens, and it was a great atmosphere.
Now, what do you think? We're talking provincially here about Madison Square Garden. Of course, the Boston fans are the same. Philadelphia fans are the same. What about as we go out? Because we're out in Iowa, we're out in Texas, we're out in California, we're in Washington, in Seattle, we're all over the place. Do you think each team have fans of the same ilk, or because in New York we're very selfish and we claim that we're the best fans in the world? I don't believe that. I believe that when we're telling these stories, I believe that the person that lives in California, Seattle, Corpus Christi, Texas, wherever, all have their own stories of visiting their local arena for the first time, and what was like for them, and it holds a place dear in the heart. Or are we we dreaming?
I think a lot of fans can relate to that, right? I mean, most teams don't win at all and don't have dynasties, so you're living every year with, there's some hope, but you kind of know it's just a middling type team. So, maybe I don't know what it's like, because I've lived in New York all my life, so I don't know what it's like in Milwaukee. Maybe for the first time with the Milwaukee Bucks, just bringing some hope to that city and what it's like there with the new arena. Maybe in the old days they could relate to someone standing up and yelling, "Nice shot, Patrick."
Well, I'll tell you, I went to, in college, I was in Providence College. We took a bus to the Boston Garden before it changed over, and I'm telling you, there was an environment there and in Fenway Park that rivals anything in New York, for sure. And I'm talking about the environment of the stadium itself, as well as the ambiance of the fans.
I haven't been outside the Northwest that much, but I know it was like that at the Boston Garden, very similar to Madison Square Garden. I know it was like that at the Spectrum, the old Spectrum in Philadelphia. Very loving fans when the team was playing well, but when the team was not playing well, oh boy, you heard it.
Now, I was in L.A. for a while, I went, and San Francisco. I went to a Giants game. I went to, Los Angeles or the, California Angel games, Dodger games. All those fans all have the same. Every fan has their own provincial love of their stadium, their team. And I'm telling you, these stories are universal, because I guarantee you, when you talk to someone that went to Dodger Stadium for the first time, they're going to have, their story. Somebody that went, when I went to the Lakers, game at the, and saw that the first time, there is a feel to all of these arenas, but they're not the same. I think it's very cool. When you visit arenas and see and go to different places, you feel a different ambiance of not only what the people are like, but it's certainly what the community is like.
But I think a lot has to do with how good the team is. I went to see the New York Giants football team play the Rams the last year they were in L.A., and it was some random Sunday. I had to be there on business, so I got there a day early, so it was easy to score tickets to this football game, or believe it or not, the day before. And I went to the stadium, and, Doug, there was no one there. I mean, it was so empty. And they were mostly Giant fans from out of town who were living in L.A. or there on business. So for a Ram fan at that point in time, I'm sorry,
wow. I missed that. Was that at the Coliseum, you say?
Yeah, it was at the old L.A. Coliseum.
Where the Dodgers played in 59 when they started, when they moved out. Yeah. 58, was it? And that place holds 100,000. I went there, saw a USC game.
Oh wow!
Back in the 80s.
But that must be a really highly charged atmosphere.
And the parking is amazing. You're parking on people's lawns. If you had a lawn, you pay give the guy it's the 80s $10, and there were 2 or 3 cars on his lawn, and his neighbor had 2 or 3 on their lawn, and so forth.
And then you hope your car's there when you leave the game,
exactly.
Right?
It was really a great experience, and so I think we could do a show once on. Doesn't matter the sport. But you can maybe you take them by sport. What if you're going to take a road trip and visit? Let's make it up: 5 stadiums or 5 arenas. Which 5 would you want to see and go to? They don't have to be geographically close to each other.
Or?
Let's just say baseball for now, just for kicks. I say Fenway.
Fenway, where's that? You mean Fenway?
Fenway. Okay. Fenway. Yeah. Chicago Cubs.
Wrigley.
Yeah. Those are obvious. I think I would like to go to see.
San
Francisco Giants. I haven't seen that one. Baltimore, I've seen, but Baltimore's a nice one.
Yeah.
As is, you got to go to the Dodger Stadium. You have to. The experience of the history in Dodger Stadium.
I've been there.
Do you have any others that you?
I'd like to see Minute Maid Stadium in Houston. That looks pretty
okay. Cool. New. Yep. Brand new.
And the Philly Stadium. It's been around for a little while now, but that's supposedly really nice too.
Right. Are we missing any? What about Milwaukee?
I'm sure we are.
Cleveland. I like to go see Cleveland.
Yeah, sure.
That's a nice looking place. I've not seen.
And you can go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's a lot to do in Cleveland. It doesn't have to just be
absolutely.
sports.
And you can listen to WFIN, which is right there in the area.
You sure it's not WFEN?
Carries everything old is new again. And it is really. I think it. I mean, this is a fantasy. I would love to do that. Or what about basketball season? I'd love to do that too. Go to different basketball arenas around. I'd love to see Chicago.
But you want to see a good team. I hate to say it, but it would make the experience better. Just to feel the energy.
At
of
least
the crowd.
A competitive team where there's hope for that particular season that you may make the playoffs.
Right.
That's for sure. So anyway, that's our little look at sports in general, if you will. And I was going to talk about the ABA. Maybe we'll have to do a show on the ABA. And I don't know how many people remember that. It was.
It's not the American Bar Association.
No, the American Basketball Association, where Dr. J was, and the Nets and the Kentucky Colonels
and the red, white, and blue basketball.
Yep, and a 3-point shot came from there.
Right.
As did the slam dunk contest.
Yep.
So that was a lot of fun back in the day, but you're kind of dating ourselves. No one that's watching basketball now that's 40 and under has any recollection of that or could care less. 45 even.
Probably not. Right.
And so, it's a lost day that used to be a lot of fun. But, all right, whatever. We're here talking basketball, and we're going to return now with Earl the Pearl Monroe, Hall of Famer, top 50 player of all time, world champion for 1973, New York Knicks. What else can we say? A new fan and friend of Everything Old is New Again.
Yes.
How in the world did we get him on this show? We're very proud and happy. We back right into this and Everything Old is New Again.
He knows a good thing when he sees it.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Yes, and we're back here with none other than the Hall of Famer himself, Earl The Pearl Monroe. The book, Earl The Pearl, My Story. You got to get involved with this book. It's tremendous. David Cohen, you wanted to start off with a question right off the bat for Earl The Pearl Monroe. And Everything Old is New Again, David.
And Earl, just looking back, your number, just to cap off an amazing basketball career, your number was retired by both the New York Knicks and the Bullets. And can you talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Well, it was interesting that I was when I was going into this Hall of Fame and so forth, that I actually called Abe Pollard, who was the owner of the Bullets. And I said, Abe, I'm going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Bullet if it's okay with you. Because, I had left, the Bullets under strange circumstances.
Sure, right.
And he felt very good about that. But I felt that was where my whole everything started. When you think in terms of Earl The Pearl, that's being there with the Bullets, that made Earl The Pearl.
Right.
And so I wanted to be kind of true to, so to speak, my roots as such. And so we talked. We were able to talk after all that time, and so getting hung in the rafters, so to speak, was I was very proud of that, and certainly very proud to be in the rafters, with my teammates with the Knicks. These are things that you can't take away. These are things that you earn, and people understand it and they know it. And when everything else is said and done and gone and whatnot, these are the things. These are the pillars of your life, and they stand still.
Sure. Hey, all right, listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. I know it's in the book, and I know you've been asked it a million times, but just for the sake of our listeners, where did the Pearl come from?
Well, in my senior year in college, I had a run of games. My first 10 games of my senior year in college, I was scoring close to 50 points a game, and a guy wrote a column, and he listed the scores against each team, and the caption of the column was, "These are Earl's Pearls."
Huh.
And that's
just stuck.
You know me for the last since '67. Wow, that's a long time.
50 years, yeah. And it's one of the greatest nicknames. And growing up, I would, of course, we spoke about the Nets and all that, but I really would watch these Knicks with envy and awe, because every one of them was a great nickname or a great shot or some personality. Every player on the court had personality that you can identify with, and yeah. I think that was really, and each player had a role. And I'm just trying to lead to a younger player now that I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and just saying, these children that are learning the game now, to look back and see teams like that where everyone had a role to play and knew what they did and respected each other, and this was the defensive guy and this is the guy for the rebounds or whatever it might be. In basketball, it's a sport like that, right? Where even if the lesser talented can find a skill to advance themselves and show themselves as a nice part of the team, right? It's a great team sport for younger children, no?
Yeah, it gives you a sense of understanding. It gives you a sense of responsibility, and for you to understand exactly what it is that you can do. I did a musical, off-Broadway musical called Bones, and Bones was life as seen through the medium of a basketball game, And in that, it was just what we just talked about. Everybody had his own spot. Everybody had their role. And that's what made the team, and that's what makes a team a winning team. So even in life situations, everybody's on a team, and everybody does their part. If you've got a wheel and a spoke is missing, then you don't have a complete wheel. So it's important that kids understand that there's a space for them, and if they fulfill their space, they're going to be winners in life. Aside from basketball, aside from sports, but in life in general, they're going to be winners.
Right. It just comes to mind. I was coaching Little League a little ways back, and I had a child that was, and these are like 13-year-olds, and he was kind of ostracized from the rest. He was a little chubby, what have you, and not so athletic, and these other kids in school apparently weren't his buddies, right? So I was able to say to him, listen, you're our defensive specialist. I don't care if you foul out. You're going on the best player on that team, and you're going to, I'm going to teach you how to hustle and how to be a defensive player. You don't really, between you and I, right? That's a skillful thing to do, but it's not dribbling the ball, it's not shooting the ball, and so forth. But lo and behold, we did that. He grabbed the ownership in that, and down the line, at the end of the season, the parents came up to me and said, you know what, he's doing so much better in school now. His kids, kids on the team like him and respect him because, again, he was able to at least advance that part of his game, and he got respect for his hustle, and he became the defensive specialist, if you will, that we named him that, on the team. And I just feel good about the fact that a sport, you don't have to win all the time at that age, but you're able to, this particular sport, I think, is great for that, where you can give different roles for children, kids, and teach them as they go along. And it does, if the kids are taught the right way, shows some ability to respect the other person, what they can and cannot do.
Exactly. And as you say this is my grandson's first Little League game today.
Uh-oh, you got to get going. Okay.
You can't miss that.
So, listen, thank you so much for spending time with us. The problem is you're going to show up there and hopefully wear glasses and a mask or something so that you can watch the game and not have to sign autographs, because everyone wants to know, and I had to get a little piece of Earl the Pearl, My Story is the book. Earl Monroe spent some time with us here on Everything Old is New Again. We can't thank you enough, and really, really enjoy the game, but we've enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
Well, I thank you, too, and having heard Mr. Ed in the intro, I'm overly excited.
There you go.
You can't get more respected than that, right? Thank you, Earl.
Thanks, Earl. Have a great day. Thank you, and Everything Old is New Again. We'll be back next week to talk all things entertainment, pop culture. So come on back, enjoy it. How about that? We've had a great time with Earl the Pearl Monroe. Earl the Pearl, My Story is the book. Find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Go there in person. You got to pick up this book. It'll take you right behind the scenes of the life and times of Earl the Pearl Monroe, top 50 best basketball player of all time. He is also, of course, a world champion with the New York Knicks, 1973. He also is a role model, and what a great time we've had the last 2 weeks with Earl the Pearl Monroe. We'll be back next week on Everything Old is New Again to discuss all things pop culture. Join us.
That's why I'm doing your show, because when I saw the title of it, I said, "Oh, this is a platform, man." So,
I love it. That's tremendous. I appreciate that. With Dr. Weller, the idea. Maybe you can explain on the air here what you think of the show, or at least the concept of our show.
Well, the attraction to do this show was the context of realizing your past and your history, and not just sort of honoring it like doing a Fred Astaire memorial, but to contextualize the past subsequently so that we don't make the same mistakes, or that we have a guidepost. All the things I've been talking about, doesn't matter whether it's myths or whether it's history. Those things fascinate me because my PhD is in Renaissance Italian art history and how to look at paintings, and the way, for instance, just for what I teach kids, is like the way you're going to look at this painting here is exactly the way way they looked at it back then and the way you look at a movie now. So all that stuff that we talk about what's entertaining in movies is the same thing that entertained people in the past about art. And so everything is old is new again. It's history, man. It's the second I saw it, I said, this has got to be a history show.
And
pop
it's
culture show.
Even though it's pop culture history, pop culture back in the day. Guess what? The Renaissance art was the pop culture of the day. So let's not.
You got to see that. But wow, you know what? Everything in its day is pop culture.
And I'm so happy to have had you. I wonder, maybe we'll have you back. We'll put you on the spot at this point if you're welcome to. Anytime you like.
No, David Cohen, Douglas Viviani, you guys are my new heroes. So I'll come back whenever you want.
All right, so Doug, people have been saying, hey, I could find you guys on YouTube. You have your own YouTube channel. I can find you on Facebook. But what about other social media? Do you exist anywhere else in the social media universe?
Yes, we do. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter. At the same thing, you go at EONA Show. That's Everything Old is New Again. The initials, right? So it's EONA Show. And that's it, at EONA Show. You got Instagram, Twitter, and I'll tell you, we post pictures, behind-the-scenes stuff, trivia, questions, contests, notes about the show, so you have a lot of fun. Subscribe to us, friend us on Facebook if you can, and subscribe to the YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
That's fun. I'm going to even start doing that.
It might be worth your while. You can actually know what we're going to do next week.
Good.
At EONA Show. That's at EONA Show. You've been listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's pop culture entertainment talk show. Find us on the web at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. That's .biz.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.